The late afternoon sun slanted through the windshield, casting fractured shadows across the dashboard as Olivia adjusted the rearview mirror. The familiar scent of cedar from Ethan's cologne still lingered in the fabric of the seats. She had borrowed his car countless times before. This was nothing new. A quick trip to the market while her own vehicle was at the shop. But today, something felt off. Her fingers brushed against something cold and smooth, wedged between the seat and the console as she reached for the reusable shopping bags. Metal. Instinctively, she gripped it and pulled it out into the open light. It was a ring. Not just any ring, an engagement ring. For a moment, time warped. The sounds of the street dulled to a hush. The air inside the car thickened, and Olivia's heart hammered violently against her chest. But it wasn't hers. She stared at it in disbelief, the platinum band glinting mockingly, the solitary diamond, catching the last rays of daylight. She ran her thumb across the delicate engraving on the inside of the band, as if deciphering a secret code. Forever, my love. Her breath hitched. The ring was beautiful, tasteful, elegant, and completely foreign to her. Ethan hadn't proposed yet. They'd been together for almost 5 years. They lived together. They had discussed marriage in passing, but he always claimed he wasn't ready, wasn't sure about the timing. So whose ring was this? Her mind reeled with possibilities, each more suffocating than the last. It could be a surprise for her. Right? But then, why had it been so carelessly left beneath the passenger seat? Why had he never hinted at anything, never asked about her ring size? She examined it again. No price tag, no receipt. Just that intimate engraving, as though it already belonged to someone. Suddenly, the car felt like a coffin, closing in around her. She forced herself to breathe, to focus, to think logically. Maybe there was an explanation. Maybe it wasn't his. Maybe someone else had left it there. But who? Her chest tightened with each question. The sharp trill of her phone snapped her out of her spiral. Ethan! His name flashed on the screen along with that familiar, smiling photo, the same one she now found almost unbearable to look at. She swallowed hard before answering. "Hey, babe." His voice was smooth, casual, as if nothing in the world had shifted. "You find the bags?" Olivia opened her mouth, but no words came out. Her gaze flicked again to the ring resting against her thigh, catching the light, whispering, silent accusations. "Liv?" he prompted. "Yeah," she croaked, clearing her throat. "Yeah, I got them." "You okay? You sound weird." She forced a laugh, robotic and distant. "Just tired." He chuckled softly. "All right, see you at home." The line went dead, and just like that, she was alone again, with a ring that wasn't hers and a mind that would never be quiet again. She slipped the ring into the small pocket of her purse, zipped it shut, and sat motionless for several minutes. Staring blankly at the steering wheel, her heart pounding violently beneath her ribs. What the hell was she supposed to do now? Chapter 2. The quiet descent into doubt. The ring's weight was negligible in her purse, but to Olivia, it might as well have been an anchor dragging her beneath the surface of her own life. Every step she took toward their apartment building felt heavier, more deliberate, as though the simple act of walking had transformed into a performance. The elevator ride to the 6th floor was silent, except for the mechanical hum and occasional creak of the cables. Olivia caught her reflection in the mirrored walls. Her eyes were distant, unfocused, and her lips pressed into a thin, pale line. She replayed Ethan's voice in her mind, casual, affectionate, utterly devoid of the nervousness or excitement one might expect from a man hiding an engagement ring or preparing to propose. When she reached their apartment door, she paused, fingers gripping the handle. On the other side of the door was their home, the place where they shared lazy Sunday mornings, spontaneous dinners, inside jokes whispered beneath the covers. But now everything felt tainted by that cold sliver of metal in her purse. She inhaled deeply. twisted the handle, and stepped inside. "Hey, you!" Ethan called from the kitchen, where he was pouring himself a glass of wine. He flashed her the easy, charming smile she had fallen for all those years ago. "Hey!" Her voice was brittle, guarded. He didn't seem to notice. "Dinner's almost ready. Figured I'd cook for once." He gestured to the stove where pasta simmered and garlic bread warmed in the oven. Olivia forced a nod, dropping the shopping bags by the counter. "You okay?" he asked, leaning in to kiss her cheek. She tensed, just for a second, then allowed it. "Yeah, just a long day." She watched him closely, scanning for any sign, any flicker of guilt, anxiety, anticipation. But he was relaxed, moving effortlessly. Through the kitchen, humming under his breath, her mind was a storm of conflicting thoughts. Is it for me? Is he planning to propose? Or is it for someone else? She sat on the stool at the island, clasping her hands tightly together to stop them from trembling. "You sure you're okay?" he asked again, raising an eyebrow. She smiled thinly. "Positive." Ethan shrugged and returned his attention to the stove, chatting casually about work, about the new guy his company had hired, about his plans to play basketball with his friends that weekend. All Olivia could hear was the sound of her own heartbeat thudding in her ears. Later that night, after dinner and the usual shared glass of wine on the balcony, Olivia excused herself early and retreated to the bathroom. She locked the door, sat on the edge of the bathtub, and pulled the ring from her purse. It gleamed under the soft vanity light, that mocking inscription still as clear as when she first saw it. "Forever, my love." She scrolled through Ethan's social media, revisiting every recent post, every tagged photo, every comment. Nothing suspicious, no unfamiliar female names repeatedly showing up in the likes or comments. But that didn't mean anything. People were smarter than that. Her thumb hovered over his phone on the bathroom counter. She had never snooped before, never felt the need. But now there was this evidence. She looked at herself in the mirror, questioning the person staring back at her. Am I being crazy? Paranoid? But the ring was real. That wasn't paranoia. That was fact. The following days passed in a blur of false normalcy. Ethan went about his routine as if nothing was wrong, and Olivia followed suit, all the while observing him through a new, sharpened lens. She noticed how he kept his phone screen turned down when they were together, something she hadn't paid much attention to before. How he stepped onto the balcony for private calls more often than usual. How he smiled a little too brightly when she asked him what he'd done that day. Each detail by itself could be innocent, but together they formed a constellation of suspicion. Late one night, after Ethan had fallen asleep beside her, Olivia slipped out of bed, retrieved the ring from her purse, and sat alone at the dining table in the dark. She held it up to the faint moonlight filtering through the blinds, as if the night itself could offer her some kind of clarity. But all she felt was the cold certainty that her life, as she had known, it was unraveling one quiet thread at a time. She knew she couldn't keep pretending forever. The question was, did she confront him, or did she keep digging quietly, methodically, until she had more than just a ring, until she had the whole truth? Chapter 3. Cracks Beneath the Surface. The next morning, Olivia awoke to the sound of the shower running and Ethan humming softly from behind the bathroom door. The familiar melody of their shared life played on, oblivious to the silent fracture that had begun to form in Olivia's heart. She lay there staring at the ceiling, the events of the last few days looping relentlessly in her mind. The ring, the inscription, the quiet evasions. She knew what she had to do. When Ethan emerged from the bathroom, towel around his waist, and leaned down to kiss her forehead, Olivia smiled as convincingly as she could manage. "Going in early today?" he said, rubbing his damp hair with another towel. Yeah, meeting with a client." He kissed her again, this time on the lips. "You going to be okay?" She nodded. "Of course." When he left, Olivia sat up in bed, listening to the door click shut, and waited for the sound of the elevator down the hall. Only after she was sure he was gone did she move. Her heart pounded as she approached his side of the closet. They had always shared everything: clothes, drawers, even bank accounts. But now she realized how much they had never talked about. She rifled through his jackets and jeans, finding nothing out of place, until she spotted his gym bag in the corner. It was heavier than it should have been. Olivia unzipped it slowly, almost afraid of what she might find. Inside, buried beneath a crumpled hoodie and his running shoes, was a small white box, the kind jewelers used. Her breath caught in her throat as she pulled it out, her fingers trembling violently. She flipped it open. Inside sat a delicate gold necklace, not the ring she had found earlier. Attached to it was a small card, folded in half. She unfolded it. "I can't wait to see you again. Last night was perfect." Olivia's entire body went cold. Who the hell was M? The bathroom mirror across the room reflected her shocked expression, her mouth hanging open as if she'd been punched. The air felt too thick, too suffocating. She stumbled backward, knocking the gym bag over, sending the hoodie and shoes tumbling onto the carpet. It wasn't just the ring anymore. There was a necklace, a note, and M. Who was M? Her mind reeled as she quickly put everything back, restoring the bag to the exact position she had found it. She couldn't risk him knowing she'd seen it. Not yet. Not until she figured out who M was and how deep this went. That evening, Olivia acted like nothing had changed. They sat together on the couch, watching a new show, Ethan's arm casually draped over her shoulders as if everything were normal. But to Olivia, nothing was normal anymore. Her eyes flicked to his phone every time it buzzed, noting how quickly he dismissed notifications or turned it face down. She had never been the jealous or suspicious type, but now, suspicion felt less like a choice and more like a survival instinct. Later that night, after Ethan fell asleep, she crept out of bed again, this time sitting at the dining table with her laptop open. She searched for everything she could. Think of Ethan's social media interactions, his recent tagged locations, even reverse searching the jeweler's box to see if it was a brand he normally used. Nothing conclusive. But then she noticed something odd. In Ethan's Instagram following list, there was a name she didn't recognize: Maya Cole. Her profile was private, but her bio read, marketing executive, yoga junkie, lover of life. And one of her profile pictures, though too small to see clearly, looked eerily familiar. Olivia's heart hammered as she connected the dots. The initial, the affectionate note. Could Maya be M? She clicked over to Facebook and typed Maya's name, finding a public post from just a week ago. "Business trip to Denver. Can't wait." Olivia's stomach dropped. Ethan had just returned from a work trip to Denver. He'd told Olivia it was. An overnight conference, was it? Or was it something else entirely? She sat there, frozen in place, staring at the screen, the weight of the evidence piling up, suffocating her. There was no denying it now. Something was going on, and she wasn't imagining it. But the question was, what was she going to do about it? Chapter 4. The First Confrontation. The following morning, Olivia couldn't shake the heaviness sitting in her chest. It was as if the necklace and the note had wrapped themselves around her rib cage, tightening with every breath she took. But she knew she couldn't live like this, paralyzed by doubt, spiraling with questions. She needed answers, and she needed to get them without tipping Ethan off. That afternoon, while Ethan was out for a meeting, Olivia decided to take the first real step toward uncovering the truth. She opened his laptop. They knew each other's passwords, always had. Their relationship was built on trust. Or so she had thought. Her fingers hovered over the keys for a moment, heart pounding before she typed in his code. It unlocked. She let out a shaky breath. Scrolling through his recent documents and emails, Olivia noticed nothing unusual at first: client files, presentations, receipts. But then, in his email drafts, she found something. A message. "Maya, can't stop thinking about last weekend. Let me know when you're free again. I miss you." Her hands clenched the edge of the desk, knuckles turning white. There it was. Confirmation. Maya wasn't just a friend or a colleague. She was someone Ethan was seeing, someone he was longing for. Olivia sat back, staring at the screen, the words searing into her brain like hot iron. He hadn't sent the message yet, but he had written it, typed it out in full. For a moment, Olivia wondered what would have happened if she hadn't looked, if she had chosen to stay blissfully unaware. But the reality was there, undeniable. She closed the laptop quietly and sat in the darkening room, listening to the distant hum of city traffic outside their apartment window. Tears welled up, but she blinked them back, refusing to let them fall. Not yet. Not until she figured out her next move. Later that evening, Ethan came home as if nothing had changed. He kissed her cheek, asked about her day, and complimented the pasta she made for dinner. All while Olivia sat there, nodding along, smiling faintly, hiding the raging storm inside her. After dinner, he excused himself to make a phone call in the bedroom. Olivia quietly followed, standing just outside the door. Through the crack, she heard him say, "Hey, yeah, I was thinking about you too." His voice was soft, intimate. "Soon, I promise. Things are just complicated right now." Olivia's heart crumbled piece by piece. She didn't need to hear more. She backed away from the door silently, returned to the kitchen and poured herself a glass of wine with trembling hands. When he emerged minutes later, phone tucked in his back pocket, she forced another smile. "Everything okay?" she asked, feigning casual interest. He nodded. "Just work stuff. Liar." She wanted to scream it at him, throw the wine glass against the wall, demand an explanation. But instead, she simply nodded, playing along. Because now wasn't the time for confrontation. Not yet. She needed to plan this carefully. She needed to protect herself, and she needed to make sure she wasn't about to throw away years of love and history based on assumptions. But it didn't feel like an assumption anymore. It felt like a fact. Ethan was cheating, and Maya was the other woman. That night, as Ethan slept soundly beside her, Olivia stared at the ceiling, tears finally escaping and sliding down the sides of her face onto the pillow. She had always imagined their life together: marriage, kids, vacations, growing old hand in hand. But now everything felt like a lie, yet despite the ache in her chest, one thought kept echoing in her mind. I'm not done yet. Chapter 5. The Unexpected Discovery. The next morning, Olivia woke up to the sound of Ethan showering. She stared at the bathroom door, steam curling out from the edges, and felt like there was an invisible wall between them now. She had spent the night turning over everything in her mind: the draft email, the whispered phone call, the necklace. It was clear something was going on, but part of her still clung to the hope that maybe, just maybe, there was an explanation, something she didn't understand yet. So when Ethan left for work, Olivia decided to take things one step further. She called in sick, and then she made her way to Maya's apartment. Maya had been her best friend since college. They'd shared everything: heartbreaks, drunken nights, family holidays. Olivia knew where she lived, knew the code to get into the building, knew the little cafe across the street where they used to sit for hours, sharing dreams. But now, walking up to Maya's building, everything felt foreign, hollow, as if all those memories had suddenly lost their meaning. She didn't have a plan exactly, just an overwhelming need to look Maya in the eye and see the truth for herself. But as she reached the front door, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Ethan. "Running late at work. Don't wait up. Love you." Olivia stared at the words, bile rising in her throat. Did he think he could keep living this double life indefinitely? She slipped the phone back in her pocket and took a deep breath. Just as she was about to buzz Maya's apartment, the door to the building swung open. Maya herself stepped out, sunglasses perched on her head, wearing a casual sundress. She didn't see Olivia at first, too busy adjusting her bag. But when their eyes met, Maya froze. For a moment, neither of them said anything. Then, Olivia spoke, voice calm but cold. "Hey!" Maya swallowed hard, her lips parting as if to say something, but no words came out. Olivia took a step closer. "We need to talk." Maya looked around nervously, then motioned for Olivia to follow her into the nearby cafe, the same one where they'd once laughed over coffee and croissants, oblivious to how everything would one day fall apart. They sat down in the corner, the air thick with tension. Maya fiddled with the strap of her bag while Olivia stared at her, silently daring her to speak first. Finally, Maya let out a shaky breath. "Guess, you know." Olivia felt her heart break all over again at those words. There was no denial, no confusion, just resignation. "How long?" Olivia asked, her voice barely more than a whisper. Maya closed her eyes briefly, then met Olivia's gaze. 6 months. Olivia flinched as if slapped. 6 months. Half a year of secrets, lies, and betrayals with the two people she trusted most. She leaned back in her chair, struggling to catch her breath. "Why?" Maya bit her lip, eyes glistening. "It just happened," Olivia scoffed, shaking her head. "Things like this don't just happen, Maya. You make a choice." Maya looked down, shame coloring her cheeks. It wasn't supposed to go this far. But Olivia was done listening to excuses. She stood up abruptly, the chair scraping loudly against the floor, drawing a few glances from nearby tables. Maya looked up at her, pleading, "Liv, please." But Olivia raised a hand, cutting her off. "Don't." And with that, she turned and walked out of the cafe, her chest heaving, tears blurring her vision. The sunlight outside was too bright, too sharp, as if the world had no idea how broken she felt inside. She walked aimlessly down the street, replaying everything Maya had said, every betrayal, every lie. How could they both do this to her? Her phone buzzed again. Another message from Ethan. "Hope your day's going okay. Thinking about you." The audacity of it made her want to scream. He was probably with Maya just hours ago, maybe even minutes ago, and now he was texting her, pretending everything was fine. Olivia wiped her eyes roughly and kept walking. She didn't know where she was going exactly, but she knew one thing for sure. She wasn't going to let this break her. No, she was going to make them both regret ever thinking they could get away with it. Chapter 6. The Confrontation. Olivia spent the rest of the day walking through the city, letting the hum of traffic and the buzz of strangers drown out the chaos inside her. Every step away from that cafe, from Maya's pleading eyes, made her resolve harden. By the time she got home, the apartment felt like an unfamiliar place. The pictures of her and Ethan smiling together, the little trinkets they'd collected over the years, they all seemed like props in a cruel play. She stood in the living room, staring at a framed photo of them on their last vacation. They looked so happy. But now, all she could see was the lie. The betrayal hiding in plain sight. Suddenly, the sound of the key turning in the lock cut through her thoughts. Ethan walked in, loosening his tie, setting his briefcase down as if it were any other day. But it wasn't. It would never be the same again. "Hey, babe," he said casually, walking over to kiss her cheek. Olivia stiffened, her body recoiling instinctively. Ethan noticed immediately, pulling back with a frown. "What's wrong?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. With steady fingers, she brought up the draft email she'd found, holding the screen up to his face. His eyes flicked to the screen, and for a moment, he froze. Then he looked back at her, forcing a confused smile. "What? What is this?" Olivia let out a bitter laugh, shaking her head. "Don't do that." "Do what?" "Pretend. Pretend like you don't know exactly what this is." Ethan's jaw tensed, his eyes darting away for a split second, just long enough to confirm everything she already knew. Olivia crossed her arms tightly, grounding herself. "How long?" she demanded, her voice trembling with restrained fury. Ethan rubbed the back of his neck, sighing deeply. "Liv, it wasn't supposed to be—" "Don't you dare!" she snapped, cutting him off. "Don't you dare stand there and feed me the same line she did." His face paled. "She?" he echoed, as if clinging to some faint hope that she didn't know the full extent of it. But Olivia saw right through him. "Yes," she spat. "Maya, my best friend, the one I trusted with everything." Ethan closed his eyes, exhaling slowly, as the truth hung in the air, poisonous and undeniable. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Finally, Ethan sank down onto the couch, burying his face in his hands. "I didn't mean for it to happen," he mumbled, his voice muffled. Olivia stood over him, her heart pounding so hard it hurt. "You didn't mean for it to happen," she repeated mockingly. "That's the best you've got?" He looked up at her, his eyes red, filled with guilt. "I love you, Olivia." She let out another bitter laugh, backing away from him as if he were toxic. "No, you don't," she whispered. "You love yourself. And you love the thrill of sneaking around with her." Ethan shook his head vehemently. "No!" It wasn't like that. But Olivia didn't believe him. She couldn't. 6 months, she said flatly. 6 months of lying to my face, of sleeping in my bed, of texting me sweet things while you were probably with her. Ethan swallowed hard, silent now, unable to defend himself. Tears welled up in Olivia's eyes, but she refused to let them fall in front of him. She straightened her shoulders, her voice steel-edged as she continued. "I talked to her today." Ethan's head snapped up at that. She admitted everything, didn't even try to deny it. He covered his face again, groaning in shame. "God!" But Olivia didn't move to comfort him. Not this time. Instead, she walked over to their bedroom and grabbed the small overnight bag they used for weekend trips. "What? What are you doing?" he asked, his voice breaking. She looked at him coldly. "I'm leaving. I need time to think. Away from all this. Liv, please, we can fix this." But she just shook her head. "No, Ethan, you broke this. Both of you did." She walked to the door, pausing only for a moment to look back at him. This man she had loved for so long, now reduced to a stranger sitting broken on their couch. Then she walked out, letting the door click shut behind her. The night air hit her like a wave, cool and sharp, making her realize she had been holding her breath for days, maybe weeks. As she stood on the sidewalk, staring up at the apartment window where Ethan now sat alone, she felt an odd mix of grief and liberation. Her world had crumbled, but maybe now, finally, she could start to rebuild it. Without the lies, without the betrayal, on her own terms. Chapter 7, Picking Up the Pieces. The cold air bit at Olivia's skin as she stood frozen on the sidewalk, her overnight bag hanging loosely from her shoulder. For a moment, she didn't know where to go. The apartment she had shared with Ethan was no longer home. It was just a place where everything had fallen apart. She inhaled deeply, steadying herself, and pulled out her phone. Her thumb hovered over a few names, but she couldn't bring herself to call her parents. They had adored Ethan. Instead, her instincts guided her to someone else. She tapped Lily, her best friend from college, the one person who had always told her the truth, even when it hurt. The phone rang twice before Lily's voice came through, warm and familiar. "Liv? Everything okay?" And that was all it took. Olivia crumbled against the cold brick of a building, sliding down until she was sitting on the curb, silent tears streaking her face. "No," she whispered. "It's not." Lily didn't ask questions. She just said, "Where are you?" An hour later, Olivia sat, curled up on Lily's couch, a blanket around her shoulders, and a mug of chamomile tea clutched tightly in her hands. She recounted everything. The accidental discovery of the draft email, confronting Maya, Ethan's failed explanations. Lily listened quietly, nodding, occasionally reaching out to squeeze Olivia's hand. "I can't believe it," Olivia said, for what felt like the 100th time. "They were the two people I trusted most," Lily's expression hardened. "They don't deserve your trust, or your tears." But Olivia shook her head, her voice breaking. "It just doesn't make sense. How did I miss it? How could they do this to me?" Lily sighed, leaning back. "Because you loved them, and you believe in people. That's not a flaw, Liv." But to Olivia, it felt like one. Her heart, which once had been so full of affection for Ethan and Maya, now felt like a hollowed-out shell. Lily, ever pragmatic, said, "You need to take care of yourself first. Figure out what you want. Do you even want to talk to them again?" Olivia let out a shaky breath, her mind spinning. She hadn't even thought that far ahead. All she had focused on was the immediate hurt, the betrayal. "I don't know," she admitted. The following days blurred together in a haze of grief and reflection. Olivia stayed at Lily's apartment, avoiding all calls and messages from Ethan and Maya. They both tried incessantly, sending walls of text filled with apologies, explanations, and declarations of love. But Olivia couldn't bring herself to open them. She wasn't ready to hear their justifications. Instead, she took long walks through the city, letting the rhythm of her footsteps carry her away from the noise inside her head. She'd pass couples holding hands, families laughing in parks, and feel a pang of envy so deep it made her physically ache. One afternoon, as she sat by the river watching the sunset bleed into the water, her phone buzzed again. Another message from Maya. "Please, just talk to me. I need you to know everything." Olivia stared at the screen, her thumb hovering over the delete button. But something stopped her. Everything? What more could there possibly be? Hadn't Maya already said enough? Later that night, back at Lily's apartment, Olivia scrolled through the photos on her phone, pictures of her and Maya through the years. Beach vacations, brunches, birthdays, even moments where Maya had stood by Olivia's side during some of her darkest days. And now she couldn't help but wonder, had all of those moments been tainted too? Were they all part of the same lie? Lily sat beside her, noticing the anguish etched into her face. "Maybe you should meet with her," Lily offered gently. Olivia looked at her, surprised. "You think so?" Lily shrugged. "Not to forgive, not to make her feel better. But maybe you need to hear whatever it is she's desperate to say, for your own closure." The idea lingered in Olivia's mind long after Lily had gone to bed. She lay awake staring at the ceiling, replaying Maya's voice in her head, the text message, the imploring eyes in the cafe. What more was there to know? And did she have the strength to find out? By morning, Olivia had made her decision. She would meet with Maya one last time, not for reconciliation, not for apologies, but for herself, to close the chapter properly and finally start writing a new one. Chapter 8. The Final Conversation. The small corner cafe was quiet that morning, the usual hum of city life dulled by the overcast sky pressing against the windows. Olivia sat at a table tucked away in the corner, her hands wrapped tightly around. A cup of coffee she hadn't taken a sip from. She hadn't even texted Maya that she'd agreed to meet. But Maya had always known where to find her, and right on cue, the bell above the cafe door jingled. Olivia looked up, her stomach tightening as she watched Maya step inside, her eyes searching until they landed on Olivia. There was a moment, a long, silent moment, where neither of them moved. They just stared at each other, 1,000 unspoken things filling the air between them. Finally, Maya walked over, her face pale, her eyes rimmed with exhaustion. She sat down slowly, folding her hands in her lap as though afraid to take up too much space. "Thank you for coming," Maya said softly. Olivia didn't answer right away. She looked at Maya, this woman who had been her closest confidant, her sister in everything but blood, and now a stranger cloaked in betrayal. "Why?" Olivia finally asked, her voice low but steady. "Why did you do it?" Maya swallowed hard, her fingers twisting the hem of her sleeve. It wasn't supposed to happen." Olivia gave a bitter laugh. "That's convenient." "No," Maya shook her head urgently, leaning forward. "Please, just let me explain." For the next several minutes, Maya unraveled a story Olivia hadn't expected. "It started after your grandmother passed," Maya began, her voice thick with regret. "You were so broken, and Ethan, he was just trying to help. He came to me, worried about you." Olivia's jaw clenched. "So you slept with him because you were both worried about me?" Maya winced. "No, God, no. It wasn't like that. We talked a lot. Late nights. About you, about life. And somewhere in all of that, it blurred. We didn't mean for it to." "But you did it anyway," Olivia said, her voice sharper now, the anger bubbling beneath the surface. Maya nodded, her eyes glistening. "Yes, I hate myself for it. I do. But Liv, after that, we stopped. We both knew it was wrong. We didn't even speak about it again." Olivia stared at her, trying to find some sign that this was a lie, that Maya was just trying to soften the blow. But the rawness in Maya's voice, the trembling of her hands, it all felt too real. "Why didn't you tell me?" Olivia whispered, the pain in her chest tightening like a vice. Maya wiped at her eyes. "Because I couldn't stand the thought of losing you. You're my best friend, Olivia. I thought if I buried it deep enough, we could all just move on." Olivia leaned back in her chair, blinking against the sting of tears. "But we didn't, did we?" Maya shook her head miserably. "No." For a while, neither of them spoke. The sounds of the cafe, the hiss of the espresso machine, the clink of silverware, filled the space where their friendship used to be. Finally, Olivia asked the question that had been gnawing at her. "Do you love him?" Maya's eyes widened in horror. "No, God, no, it was never love. It was weakness, a mistake, and I've regretted it every day since." Olivia stared out the window, watching as a light drizzle began to streak the glass. All this time, she had imagined something sordid, an affair built on passion and deceit. But this was almost worse. It was ordinary, human, a moment of weakness that shattered everything. "I don't know what you want me to say," Maya whispered. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I needed you to know the truth." Olivia looked back at her, studying the face she'd known for so long. "No," she said finally, standing up and pulling on her coat. "You don't deserve it." Maya nodded slowly, tears sliding down her cheeks. "But I'm not holding on to this anymore," Olivia continued, her voice growing stronger. "You've carried your guilt long enough. Now, it's your burden alone." Maya opened her mouth, but Olivia was already turning away, her bag slung over her shoulder, her head held high. As she stepped out into the misty morning, the cold air hit her, sharp and clean. For the first time in weeks, she felt like she could breathe. She didn't know what would happen with Ethan yet. That confrontation was still looming, but one thing was certain. She had faced the person who had hurt her most and walked away with her dignity intact. Chapter 9. The Confrontation with Ethan. The apartment was quiet when Olivia arrived, the familiar scent of cedar and laundry detergent hanging in the air, deceptively normal, like nothing had changed. But everything had. She stood at the doorway, for a moment, her hand resting on the knob as if it could anchor her to something stable. But no such thing existed anymore. Liv? His voice drifted from the living room, casual, unsuspecting. She swallowed hard and followed it, her heart pounding so loudly it drowned out her thoughts. Ethan sat on the couch, scrolling through his phone, completely oblivious to the storm about to hit him. When he looked up and saw her standing there, pale, rigid, his smile faltered. "Hey, you okay?" She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she walked over slowly, every step deliberate, as though her body was acting on instinct alone. She sat down across from him, her posture tense, arms crossed tightly over her chest. Ethan's brow furrowed with concern. "Olivia, what's going on?" She stared at him for a moment, searching his face. This face she had kissed 1,000 times, had dreamed of building a life with. Now it felt like a mask, hiding someone she no longer recognized. "I know," she said finally, her voice low but deadly clear. Ethan's head tilted, confused. "Know what?" She let out a slow, shaky breath, forcing the words out. "About you and Maya?" His entire body went rigid, his eyes widening in disbelief and fear. What are you talking about?" "Don't." Her voice cracked like a whip. "Don't lie to me." Ethan opened his mouth, but no sound came. Out. He looked away, rubbing the back of his neck, his chest rising and falling rapidly. How did you find out?" he finally whispered. Olivia gave a bitter laugh, tears stinging her eyes. "You left your phone at my place, remember? I wasn't even trying to snoop. But then I saw the messages. The photos." Her voice broke, and she quickly wiped her eyes, not wanting to show weakness. Ethan leaned forward, his hands clasped tightly together. "It was a mistake, Olivia. A stupid, horrible mistake. It didn't mean anything." She flinched at the cliché. "It meant something to me." He ran a hand through his hair, his whole body trembling. "I swear, it was one time. We never talked about it again." "That makes it worse," she shot back, her voice rising. "You buried it like it never happened. You let me sit there with her, laugh with her, confide in her, while you both kept this disgusting secret." Ethan's eyes filled with tears. "I didn't want to hurt you." "But you did!" she cried, standing up abruptly, pacing the room. "God, Ethan, you shattered everything." He stood too, reaching out to her, but she recoiled as if his touch would burn her. "I loved you," she whispered, her voice shaking with pain. "I trusted you. I pictured my entire future with you." Ethan's voice cracked. "So did I." She shook her head violently. "No. If you did, you wouldn't have done this." For a long moment, they just stood there in the suffocating silence, both drowning in the consequences of his betrayal. Finally, Olivia straightened her shoulders, wiping the last of her tears. "Away. I'm done," she said firmly. "We're done." Ethan looked as if she had physically struck him. "Olivia, please, don't say that." But she was already grabbing her bag, her movements swift and determined. "There's nothing left to say," she murmured, heading toward the door. Ethan took a desperate step forward. "Liv, please, I love you." She paused, her hand on the doorknob, and turned her head just enough to look at him one last time. "If you loved me, You would have fought for us before you tore us apart." And with that, she opened the door and walked out, leaving Ethan standing there, broken and alone. As she stepped into the hallway, Olivia felt a strange mixture of grief and relief. Grief for what had been lost. Relief that she'd finally stopped clinging to someone who had already let her go. Chapter 10. Letting Go and Moving Forward. The days after Olivia walked out of Ethan's apartment blurred into a haze of numbness and disbelief. The air felt heavier, her apartment colder, her world quieter, almost sterile without the usual pings of texts from either Ethan or Maya. For the first time in years, her phone remained silent. No apologies, no explanations, just silence. She thought it would break her, but it didn't. Instead, every morning she woke up and felt a little bit lighter, as if each tear shed in the darkness peeled away a layer of pain, revealing the steel beneath her skin. 1 week later, Olivia found herself at the park where she and Maya used to meet for coffee dates, their laughter echoing across the playground as they watched other people's children play. Now, the bench felt cold and foreign beneath her. She stared ahead, watching strangers pass by, couples holding hands, mothers pushing strollers, friends sharing inside jokes. Life moved on. She had to as well. With a deep breath, Olivia pulled out her phone, not to scroll through old messages or photos like she had tortured herself with all week, but to block both Maya and Ethan. The finality of it was both devastating and liberating. No more ghostly notifications, no more wondering what they were thinking or doing, no more false hope. Later that evening, she found herself at her favorite bookstore, a place she hadn't visited in months. As she wandered through the aisles, her fingers brushing over spines of novels and memoirs, a small voice in her mind whispered, "You are still here. You are still whole." For so long, her identity had been intertwined with theirs. Her best friend, her boyfriend, their shared moments, dreams, plans. Now, for the first time in her adult life, Olivia realized she was standing alone. But she wasn't crumbling, she was standing. As she approached the checkout counter with a new book tucked under her arm, the clerk smiled. Starting something new? Olivia returned the smile, a genuine one, small but real. "Yeah, I guess I am." On her walk home, the cool breeze wrapped around her, but instead of shivering, she inhaled deeply, letting it fill her lungs. The streets she had walked 1,000 times with Ethan, the cafes where she had shared secrets with Maya, they were all still there. But their power over her had faded. Memories, she realized, are just that. Memories. They only hurt when we keep clinging to them. That night, Olivia stood by her window, looking out at the city lights, her reflection faint in the glass. She thought about the girl she had been, trusting, loyal, naive in love, and then she thought about the woman she was becoming, resilient, wise, unafraid to walk away from people who didn't respect her heart. For a moment, she allowed herself to grieve one last time, not for Ethan or Maya, but for the version of herself that had believed their love and friendship would last forever. Then she whispered quietly to the night, "Thank you for the lesson." And with that, she turned off the light, crawled into bed, and, for the first time in weeks, slept peacefully. The end.